At the beginning of the story, we are introduced to Jang, a loan collector. His job is to recover money from people who have taken loans, but are now unable to repay them. As part of his routine, he collects payments from people by threatening and beating them, and then reports to a lady he works for. The boss is very angry with Jang because he is too soft-hearted. Whenever he goes to collect loans, he often ends up feeling sorry for the debtors, and, instead of taking money from them, he gives them some of his own. Even though his boss was angry, she orders Jang and his men to go to a hospital to collect money from another debtor. Jang follows her orders and goes to the hospital, only to find that the man they are supposed to collect money from is still in a coma. However, the man's daughter, Ting, who works at a bank, is present there. Ting pleads with Jang's men to leave her alone and promises to repay the money within a few days. Despite her request, Jang's men refuse to back down and start threatening her. They pressure Ting to sign a document. Feeling helpless and overwhelmed, Ting finally gives in and signs the paper unwillingly. When Jang's men were forcing Ting to sign the documents, Jang couldn't take his eyes off her. He stared at Ting deeply, as if he was captivated by her. It seemed as though he had developed a sudden admiration for her. Even after returning home, Jang found himself lost in thoughts about Ting, unable to shake her image from his mind. The next day, Jang goes to the bank where Ting works as a cashier. He spends the entire day at the bank, wandering around her and trying to talk to her. However, Ting pays little attention to him. She is still very angry with Jang because of the way he had treated her earlier. In the next scene, we are introduced to Jang's family. He lives in a small, crowded house with his father and his brother's family. Their home is filled with constant arguments and tension. Despite living together, their relationships are strained, and Jang often finds himself caught in the middle of their disputes. The following day, Jang decides to visit Ting at her office, hoping to talk to her and make amends. However, when he arrives, he is shocked to see his boss behaving inappropriately and touching Ting against her will. Filled with rage, Jang loses control and attacks his boss, beating him up in front of everyone. Ting, startled and frightened by the sudden violence, immediately calls the police. After a few moments, the police arrive and take both Jang and Ting to the police station. However, Ting discovers that the police officer in charge is a friend of Jang. Using his influence, Jang's friend calms both of them down and dismisses the case without taking any further action. Despite the incident, Jang's feelings for Ting continue to grow. He has completely fallen in love with her and becomes determined to win her over at any cost. The next day, Jang goes to meet Ting and makes her an unexpected offer. He tells her that if she agrees to go on a date with him, he will reduce a portion of her loan. He even adds that if she agrees to go on dates with him every day, he will eventually forgive the entire loan amount. Hearing Jang's proposal, Ting becomes furious. Overcome with anger, she harshly insults Jang, rejects his offer, and storms off. In the next scene, Ting visits the hospital to check on her father. However, she is shocked when the hospital staff informs her that she must pay the pending bills for the last 20 days in order for her father to continue receiving treatment. Panicked and desperate, Ting begins calling her friends, pleading for financial help. But one by one, they all refuse, leaving her feeling hopeless and helpless. With no other options left, Ting is forced to swallow her pride and approach Jang. Ting meets Jang and reluctantly agrees to go on a date with him, but she makes it clear that it will be just a dinner, nothing more than that. Jang, overwhelmed with excitement, readily agrees. That evening, the two of them go to a restaurant for dinner. However, Ting is visibly upset. She doesn't eat anything and sits there quietly. Her sadness is evident, and it's clear that she isn't there by choice but out of sheer compulsion. The next day, Jang changes his hairstyle, dresses well, and goes to the hospital. However, upon arriving, he doesn't find her there. Instead of leaving, he decides to help by taking care of her father. As Jang tends to Ting's father, Ting arrives at the hospital and is pleasantly surprised to see this caring side of him. She's genuinely happy to witness a different side of Jang. Later that evening, when they go to dinner together, Ting's behavior changes. Unlike the previous time, she now enjoys the meal with Jang. This time, she starts to feel a little more comfortable around him. For the next few days, everything seems to be going well between Jang and Ting. They both begin to like each other, and their connection grows stronger. However, one day, everything takes an unexpected turn. Jang's friends are seen beating up a shopkeeper who has yet to repay his loan. Jang, upon witnessing the violent scene, becomes furious. He rushes over and intervenes, stopping his friends from hurting the shopkeeper. In the midst of this, Ting arrives at the scene. Seeing Jang involved in the confrontation, Ting mistakenly believes that Jang is the one beating the shopkeeper. Hurt and upset by what she thinks she witnessed, she becomes angry and storms off without giving Jang a chance to explain. The next day, Jang goes to the hospital to meet Ting. However, due to the misunderstanding, Ting asks him to leave. Angrily, she also tells him that in a few days, she will repay all his money. When Jang refuses to leave, Ting begins to walk away. Jang stops her and confesses his feelings, but Ting, having lost faith in him, refuses to listen and walks away without saying another word. Jang was deeply saddened after the incident with Ting. He drank heavily and in his drunken state, went to a prostitute and began misbehaving with her. However, she kicked him out and drove him away. Still intoxicated, Jang went to the hospital to see Ting. There, he learned that her father had passed away, and that she didn't even have enough money to cover the cost of his funeral. When Jang learns about Ting's situation, he feels a deep sense of responsibility and decides to help her. He rents a room, decorates it, and arranges for her father's funeral. While at the room, a shop owner and his wife come to meet Ting. They explain that Jang didn't beat them that day. Instead, he had saved them. Upon hearing this, Ting realizes her mistake and the misunderstanding she had about Jang. She forgives him and, moved by his actions, invites him to her home. When Jang arrives at Ting's house, he is shocked to see how small it is. Seeing Ting and her family living in such cramped conditions deeply moves him. Overcome with emotion, Jang quietly leaves. After that day, Ting and Jang continue to meet as they had before. Jang shows even more care and attention toward Ting, always trying to support her in every way he can. One day, overcome with emotion, Ting kisses Jang, expressing the love she has come to feel for him. Both Ting and Jang are overjoyed. From that moment on, their relationship takes a new, happier turn. Time passes slowly, and Jang and Ting continue to live happily together. One day, Ting shares her dream of opening a tea shop. Inspired by her ambition, Jang and Ting promise each other that they will work hard to make her dream come true. The next day, Jang decides to take a significant step toward changing his life. He goes to his boss and informs her that he wants to quit his job as a loan collector. His boss doesn't say anything in response, but inside, she is furious at Jang's decision. The next day, Jang and Ting go out to look for a shop to rent for their tea business. After searching, they finally find a shop in a prime location. However, the rent is very high because it is in a well-known area. Determined to fulfill their dream, Ting decides to invest her late father's insurance money into the shop. The next day, she sends Jang to the bank to withdraw the insurance money and asks him to bring it directly to the rented shop. However, instead of going to the shop, Jang makes a terrible decision. Tempted by greed, he takes the money and goes to gamble, hoping to win more. Meanwhile, Ting waits anxiously at the shop. When Jang goes to a casino to gamble, he is suddenly attacked by a group of goons who steal all his money. Unbeknownst to Jang, these goons were sent by Madame to teach him a lesson for quitting his job and betraying her. Meanwhile, Ting waits at the shop for Jang for a long time. As hours pass and Jang doesn't show up, she becomes worried and finally decides to leave. While heading home, Ting is shocked to find Jang on the street, badly injured and covered in blood. Overwhelmed by guilt and shame for losing the insurance money, Jang becomes angry with himself. Unable to face Ting's disappointment, he decides to punish himself emotionally. He lies to Ting, telling her that he never loved her and that everything he did was only for money. Ting is devastated after hearing Jang's harsh words. Overcome with anger and heartbreak, she slaps Jang and breaks all ties with him before walking away in tears. Jang, filled with guilt and self-loathing, becomes even more angry with himself. While he is drowning in alcohol, a policeman notices his condition and approaches him, trying to stop him from drinking any further. However, Jang, still consumed by anger and frustration, lashes out and starts hitting the policeman. This impulsive act leads to his arrest. After the incident, he is sentenced to 6 months in prison. 6 months passed, and during this time, no one knew where Jang had gone. After serving his sentence, Jang was finally released from jail. The first thing he did was go to his boss to confront her. Jang demanded to know where his money was, but his boss, who had now entered politics, ignored his questions and left without giving him any answers. In anger, he destroyed his boss's entire office. Jang even threatened to set her office on fire. Seeing Jang's uncontrollable rage, his boss became frightened and agreed to return his money. In the next scene, a flashback reveals a heartbreaking truth. While Jang was in jail, his medical report showed that he had been diagnosed with a terminal brain disease, which was incurable. This meant that Jang did not have much time left to live. After being released and taking the money from his boss, Jang immediately goes to Ting. However, Ting is still deeply hurt and angry because of everything that happened in the past. When Jang offers her the money, Ting refuses to take it. Instead, she slaps Jang and walks away. After meeting Ting, Jang returns home to find that his father's health has begun to deteriorate. Despite his father's condition, Jang's brother continues to make him work. Enraged by this, Jang confronts his brother and beats him severely. After the confrontation, Jang sits down with his father and they talk for a while. The conversation is filled with emotion, and Jang feels a deep sense of regret for everything that has happened. Once they finish talking, Jang leaves the house and goes to find Ting. When he arrives, he is heartbroken to see that Ting is now in a relationship with another man. Overcome with sadness, Jang begins to cry, feeling helpless and unable to change anything. While watching Ting from a distance, he suddenly feels a wave of dizziness and faints, collapsing from the weight of his emotions and his deteriorating health. When Jang wakes up in the hospital a few hours later, he is filled with a sense of hopelessness. Determined to let Ting find happiness without him, he decides to leave the town forever. Without telling anyone, he sneaks out of the hospital and heads toward the station. Meanwhile, Ting, who had brought Jang to the hospital, is unable to find him. Panicked, she begins searching for him. Along the way, she meets the policeman, the same one who had been involved in the earlier incident with Jang. The policeman, seeing Ting's concern, tells her everything about Jang's medical condition, revealing that he has a terminal illness and only has a few days left to live. Shocked and heartbroken, Ting immediately rushes to the bus stand. There, she finds Jang, preparing to leave. Without hesitation, Ting takes him back to his home, determined to care for him in the little time he has left. A few days later, Jang's condition worsens significantly. His health deteriorates to the point where he has to be admitted to the hospital. Through it all, Ting never leaves his side, staying with him in the hospital and doing everything she can to keep him comfortable and happy. Despite her efforts, Jang's condition worsens beyond hope. Eventually, he passes away in the hospital, leaving Ting devastated. After his death, Jang's funeral is held, and it is a deeply emotional event for everyone who knew him. His family, friends, and even the people who had once feared him gather to say their goodbyes. In the last scene, Jang's brother is shown opening a gift left by Jang. Inside the gift, he finds a light. The light was something Jang's brother needed for his shop, as the old one had broken, but he couldn't afford to replace it. Jang had known about this and left the light as a gift for him before he died. Upon seeing the gift, Jang's brother begins to cry loudly. He had always thought his brother was useless and hated him, but now, he realizes that before dying, Jang was trying to fix everything. The movie ends with this deeply emotional scene, leaving a powerful message about love, regret, and redemption.